to say the least, with all the news coming out at the start of the week. And we're looking at the best available NFL free agents, guys that are still out there. Aaron Rodgers, still on the list. He's been linked to a handful of teams, but we're still waiting to see what he does. Cooper Kupp, who is just officially released by the Rams, and we're hearing that the Cowboys are making a push, and then they're not. So a lot of different things that we're hearing about Cooper Kupp as well. So let's welcome in Bryant B-Mac McFadden to talk about some of the top guys that are still out there, starting with Cooper Kupp, because potentially the Cowboys, now they're kind of running that back. The Seahawks could be in the mix. What are some potential suitors that make sense at this point for Cooper Kupp, B-Mac?
There are quite a few teams that could utilize Cooper Kupp services when you look at the pass catcher position. You talked about the Dallas Cowboys. One would say the New England Patriots. They need to add more reliable pass catchers around their young quarterback in Drake May. But the ideal destination for me in terms of Cooper Kupp would be the Los Angeles Chargers. And it makes sense from either side. For Cooper Kupp, you don't have to change anything. You don't have to move. You don't have to relocate. You can take the same scenic route to the stadium that you did while playing for the Rams. They both play in SoFi Stadium. And outside of that, when you look at for the team with the Chargers, Ladd McConkey played his way into wide receiver one for that team last year. Great rookie year, over 80 receptions. He was the most reliable wide receiver. And then they moved on from Josh Palmer. He signed a new deal with the Buffalo Bills, so clearly depth is an issue. And you're still waiting for Quentin Johnson to showcase the consistency that paved the way with him being a first-round selection years ago. So if you're Cooper Kupp, they have a dire need at the wide receiver position. You have an experienced playmaker at the quarterback in Justin Herbert, and you don't have to do anything in terms of relocating your family. It makes sense from either side.
Yeah, that's the beauty of playing in the NFL in LA. You got a couple options, right? All right, let's talk about Aaron Rodgers, because he's been linked to a couple of teams, the Giants, the Vikings, potentially your Pittsburgh Steelers. Before we get into Fitz, are you surprised that he hasn't signed with anybody just yet, B-Mac?
I'm not surprised, because Aaron Rodgers, he does things at his own time, at his own pace. So he's taking his time and going through this process to make sure he finds the best fit. So it's the Aaron Rodgers waiting game right now. So I'm not surprised, because clearly this has been a part of his MO in terms of moving from team to team.
In terms of fits, though, and I'll start with Pittsburgh, do you like that? There's already some big personalities in the locker room. What teams come to mind when you think of where Aaron Rodgers could go next?
Well, for Pittsburgh, yes, I like it, because what other option do you have? It's Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson. Now, the thing about these two quarterbacks, I think with Pittsburgh, the unknown is a little more appealing, attractive than the known. We know what Russell Wilson is in the Pittsburgh Steelers uniform, and unfortunately for Russell Wilson, the last images that we watched with him wasn't successful. He was 0-5 in his last 5 starts, including the playoffs, and he didn't play really, really good football. So the unknown with Aaron Rodgers, when you pair him up with DK Metcalf and George Pickens, makes a lot of sense. But for me, the best ideal destination for Aaron Rodgers is the Minnesota Vikings. The Minnesota Vikings, and I know Jonathan Jones came on and talked about if Minnesota wanted Aaron Rodgers, he would have already signed with the Vikings. Well, Aaron Rodgers, you need to make your case for Minnesota. And the reason why this makes sense for Aaron Rodgers, you want to go out on a good note. It's safe to say Minnesota, who were a playoff team a year ago, they have the same playoff aspirations. Another talented team they have assembled when you look at what they've done in retaining players, adding some players via free agency, and they still have the draft. This will be a competitive team, and they've been coached the right way. For Minnesota, an Aaron Rodgers type of player gives you an opportunity to allow J.J. McCarthy to take his time before getting the keys to the organization. Sam Darnold was the insurance policy for the Minnesota Vikings last year, and they had to cash in on that said insurance policy. If you bring Aaron Rodgers into the fold, now you put him into a lineup being coached by Kevin O'Connell, who's had success with Sam Darnold, Kirk Cousins, heck, even Joshua Dobbs had success playing under Kevin O'Connell. So when you look at the talent that Aaron Rodgers still has, the above-the-shoulder game, and the luxury of throwing to Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, T.J. Hockenson, you have to like that makeup if you're Aaron Rodgers. And the same can be said for the Minnesota Vikings, because you don't know exactly what you have in your rookie quarterback, who will be a rookie this year because he didn't play last year, and understanding and knowing if he's your QB1.
Yeah, we saw those stats, the season lows or career lows last season for Aaron Rodgers. But towards the end of the season, he was starting to look a little bit more like the Aaron Rodgers of late, right? So let's talk about Mekhi Becton. If we look at Pete Prisco's top 100 free agents, this guy has been on there. He got a little bit better with pass protection as the season went on. He's 26 BMAC. What could the market look like for him?
Well, I'm surprised he's still available because, to your point, he had a great year for the Philadelphia Eagles. He fit in nicely with the rest of the offensive line mates there and did a great job in paving the way for a record-breaking year with Saquon Barkley. But for me, the best destination for Mekhi would be the Washington Commanders. Addition by subtraction. If you're Washington, clearly the emphasis has been to improve the offensive line. Seeing what they did in trading and giving away a haul for Laramie Tunsil, you want to make sure you have a stable, consistent offensive line unit for your second-year quarterback in Jayden Daniels. Now, remember, their best guard in Sam Cosmi tore his ACL in the playoffs against the Detroit Lions. So not knowing where he will be in terms of health by the time the season starts is very, very important. There lies the opportunity for a guy like Mekhi Becton. He provides value, he provides depth, and also, too, he comes into this season with an abundance of confidence because he's shown the ability that I can live up to being a first-round player that was taken years ago. So this makes all the sense in the world for me because, like I said, addition by subtraction, you're taking a quality player from your divisional foe, you add them to what you already have in the mix there with in D.C., and your quarterback has another outstanding offensive lineman to play from behind in terms of protection, and we know what type of massive player he is in run support.
Yeah, you got to protect that franchise QB. We have two more guys to get to. Let's talk about Rasul Douglas because he's played for 3 different teams, and his career, BMAC, wherever he goes, seems to still make himself a playmaker. What are some potential landing spots that come to mind for you for him?
I'm still amazed that he's available because I felt like he played really, really good football for Buffalo, and I'm surprised Buffalo are not trying to retain his services, but of course they have to allocate money in other areas for their team. But for me, it's the Los Angeles Rams. Since moving on from Jalen Ramsey, the Rams have been trying to find that ideal outside corner. They brought in Tre'Davious White a year ago. Ahkello Witherspoon was kind of commanding that area, but they haven't really found that lockdown type of player. Rasul Douglas could be that for the Rams. When you look at what they have with the guys that rush the passer, Jared Verse, Braden Fisk, Young, they got some guys that can put pressure on opposing quarterbacks to make life a little easier for the guys in the secondary. But just imagine if they're able to implement Rasul with everything they already have in place on the defensive side. This would really take their defense to a whole nother level in terms of having that lockdown potential outside corner, something they've been missing since they moved on from Jalen Ramsey. So this clearly makes a lot of sense for the Rams, and the same can be said for Rasul.
Let's go to Baltimore, where the Ravens released their veteran safety Marcus Williams this week. He lost the starting job over the 2024 season, did not play after week 12. Is he still a starter in your eyes, BMAC, and where could he go?
You know what? That's a great question because we haven't seen Marcus play a full season since, 2021. So every year, he's been missing time because of injury or just being a healthy scratch as he was a year ago. So I think in terms of being a bona fide, legit starter, to be determined. But one thing he has is experience. He's been around for quite some time. He's played high-level football with the Saints. The same can be said with Baltimore early on. He just kind of fizzled out a little bit within that organization. So if you're looking for a player that has experience and that could provide depth in case you need him to step in, I think Marcus could be the guy. And one team that could utilize his services in terms of leadership experience, especially in the back end, it's the Miami Dolphins, right? They moved on from Javon Holland. He signed a free agent deal with the Giants. They brought in Ashton Davis from divisional foe, the Jets. He's never been a consistent starter. So if you're the Miami Dolphins, you want to continue to add depth to that safety room along with the experience. And to your question, if you need him to step in and he's healthy, I think he could be a starter for the Miami Dolphins. Great tackler, guy that's sound in coverage. And the thing I love about him in terms of his game, the way he communicates. He's the ultimate traffic cop, making sure everyone crosses the street when they need to, and being able to translate and be transparent with some of the guys in the second and the first level. So I think this will make perfect sense for either side. Marcus, in terms of getting another opportunity to really showcase that he still has some wear on his tire. And when it comes to the Miami Dolphins, adding experience to an area where clearly experience is needed.
B-Mac, we certainly appreciate it, talking about the top free